Tonight on Alcohol and Anime Night, we talk about how a dirty video game turned into an anime phenomenon overnight. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Alcohol and Anime Night, the show that gets you drunker, the show that gets you fatter, and the show that makes your house cat look at you in very judging ways. Tonight, we are going to talk about Neko Para, and we're also going to talk about a Japanese drink that I think you guys might enjoy. Before I get into that, I did want to talk a little bit about, we had a little hiatus here. I've been off for a couple of weeks. I was on vacation in Northern California. It was delightful, but I am back, and it's time to get back into videos. And so with that, let's have ourselves a little shot of the good stuff, the captain, and we'll get ourselves rolling. Come by. Alright, well let's get started with a little bit of history. Back in 2014, Seikai Project produced a game by a little-known doujin developer called Neko Works, and it was called Neko Para. It was the first volume of a visual novel series. If you don't know what a visual novel is, it's essentially kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure book, but it is illustrated. In this case, it was not only illustrated that you played it and you go through it. Sometimes you can make choices. Oftentimes you just play through a story. These were animated, and the characters, rather than being kind of static, they moved and they blinked, and they were kind of half animated, so it made it feel like you were actually in the anime, which is pretty revolutionary for the time. And on top of that, now the original version was called Soleil Kaiten Shimashita. It was the first of a now multi-volume series. I believe it's on volume 4 now. We'll get to that in a few moments. Now, the success was due in no small part to the character designs, which were very beautiful, colorful. They had maid outfits. They were cat-ear girls, so it checked a lot of boxes. And the game itself had some very fun aspects. It was kind of an R-rated game. You could download and add on and patch in a much more adult content for, I believe, a small price on Steam. And the game itself also had certain jiggle physics that were adjustable, and there was literally like a slider that you could adjust to see how much of the jiggling that you actually wanted. I'm gonna guess most people opted for maximum jiggling, which is going to be the name of my punk band if I ever have one. Maximum Jiggling. Anyway, it was a runaway success. It came out at kind of the perfect time. There was a lot of memes about it, and they really did a lot of advertising. It was quite successful. Again, on Steam, they advertised it quite a bit. So it ended up being very, very well received. If you wonder what the name Neko Para, Neko being the name for cat, and Para meaning it's kind of a shortened version of paradise. So it's cat paradise put together, and that's where that comes from. So there again, being such a runaway success, in 2018 a manga was published along with the big news that they were going to be producing an OVA. And for you guys who don't know, an OVA, it's kind of like usually like a short movie, usually like a one episode type of thing. And the fan reaction was overwhelming, to say the least. They were going to do a Kickstarter, and basically they wanted to raise, somewhere around $100,000. And it went something like this.
Hey guys, we're finally making an OVA, and we need at least $100,000, so if you could all just donate like $1.
And the fans were like, here's $1 million, make a whole goddamn series. It was so wildly popular, it was the largest animation project ever on Kickstarter, and easily reached not only its actual goal, but its stretch goal too, which meant that they not only made the OVA, they made another OVA and the series and like another short thing. So they had plenty of time, and so the fans just ate it up. Now, it's important to note that the series itself, and I haven't gotten into the specifics in kind of on purpose, the series itself really had an adult, it was an adult visual novel. Even the even the kind of R-rated version, which didn't have kind of the very I guess I would say X-rated scenes, still was quite adult in nature. And so the source material is adult. So by nature, you would expect the OVA and anime to have that exact same flavor. And you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong. So that's where we get into the anime series. The anime series, which you can view on any of your favorite streaming services, Crunchyroll, etc., which now they're merged and whatnot. I picked it up on disc. It was pretty cheap. 12 episodes, and it aired in 2020 is when they finally did it, January of 2020. And which also happened to be the same year that the volume 4 of the visual novel released. So again, just kind of success on success kind of worked for them. Now, the world that we're talking about with Neko Para is a world with humanoid cats, as you might have already guessed from some of the imagery. Now, the humanoid cats can talk, and they're in all respects for all. They are basically humanoids with ears, but they have kind of cat personalities, if that makes sense. So they do cat stuff all the time. Now, for all intents and purposes, it's important to note that these cats, there's not really a way to get around it. They are slaves. And while the kind of morality of that sinks in, let me also hit you with the fact that the average adult cat is a year old. So there's a lot to unpack morally and ethically, but in the series they don't really talk about that, and it doesn't seem to be an issue. So these slave cats, they live in a world, and they're kind of essentially forced to work and have to wear these collars that basically make them proof that they're going to behave and everything. It's actually kind of heavy subject matter, but they don't address any of that at all. So what you might be interested to know is that this is not a harem anime. Typically, we might see an anime where there is a protagonist male, and he is essentially surrounded by many different types of ladies, presenting all sorts of interesting and sexy situations. That is not what this is. In fact, while there is a male character who is essentially kind of a main character, he's really in the background. He is the owner of the cats and the owner of a French bakery, which I'm not going to try to pronounce because I'll definitely mess it up. Kasho Minazuki, he's the one who owns the French bakery, and his sister, Sigure, his younger sister, owns a whole bunch of cats, and they also sometimes work at the store, so there's some back and forth between them, and there's some interesting, funny, just reactions the cats fight and stuff like that. But other than that, the story really focuses around chocolat and vanilla. And all of the cats, by the way, have names that are like ingredients, like nuts and cacao and things like that. So really, that's what the whole thing focuses on. And so it's not a harem. And I also want to point out that while the source material is quite adult in nature, and if you're going to look it up, don't use your work computer, not safe for work at all. This is not. In fact, knowing the source material going into it, I had a very different expectation of what this was going to be. And frankly, it's barely PG-13. It's borderline wholesome. And it is really just a story about cute cat girls doing cute cat girl stuff. And at some point, there's a little bit of a recurring theme with kind of the development of the new character Cacao, which I'm kind of ruining that a little bit for you. But this new kitten comes into it, and how Vanilla and Chocolat take care of her. It's very cute. It's very colorful. It's not particularly It's not exciting. It's not hilarious. It's just cute. And honestly, I'm here for it. I feel like now this is like another series. I feel like tricked me into like, oh yeah, you're gonna really like this because it's gonna be like this, super dirty R-rated, and it really wasn't. It wasn't at all. Again, barring a few scenes, mostly from I believe Cinnamon, who's like just turns everything into like a moment to kind of be like aroused by it. Barring a few of those moments, really it's pretty tame. And so if you like a show that's basically just, if you're a cat person, you're going to get a lot of these jokes too, because there's a lot of cat related jokes. So whoever created this was clearly a fan of cats. It's almost like they took the concept of cute cat videos on the internet and turned it into an anime, and it works. Again, it's not my highest rated thing ever. It's like a solid 5.5. Like, it's just right there. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's also nothing that's like crazy exciting. Now, what is crazy is how popular this has gotten in a short period of time. In a very short period of time, there has been manga, the doujin, the game. There's a whole bunch of figures getting ready to come out, which are shocking in price, some of them. There's a VR project that's coming out. It's everywhere, and it really has gotten a lot of success. So I love to see that something like that is done so well for itself. Because of the very adult nature of its origins, it very much reminds me of the toys from when I grew up that were based on R-rated movies, such as these Kenner Aliens figures that were based on an R-rated Aliens film. However, they brought out these fun figures for the kids in the 90s that were based on a film that they probably shouldn't ever see. RoboCop did the same thing. Rambo did the same thing. I think Toxic Avenger did the same thing. It was a trauma video, but they marketed it towards kids. And it was really interesting to take a R-rated source material and then market it towards something very different. It felt very much like that to me here. So I'm not sure what the thinking was, but it worked, I think. It definitely presented their product to a much broader audience, and now again you can find figures and all sorts of stuff everywhere. So check it out. I think you might like it. And again, it's if you're looking for something that's really closer to the original games, it will not be that. I promise you that. In fact, I will say that they actively seem to almost shy away from the scenes where you would see in most ichi anime, like, the upskirt shots and the things like that. There's plenty of opportunity that they've had for that, and they avoid it. Apart from just a couple of maybe kind of cleavage type things, they really, and a couple of scenes where people like in their bathing suits and whatnot, they really do avoid it for the most part. So if that kind of stuff doesn't make you feel comfortable, then maybe that's a good thing. But keep in mind, if you're expecting the visual novel, that is not what you will get. In fact, I would recommend watching this and then doing the visual novel, because they are not sequels to each other. They're kind of like parallel to each other. There's some similarities between one and the other, but there's some obvious differences if you've played the one. I have not played it. I only had the opportunity to do some research based on this video. My computer doesn't run it because I have a Mac, so they have Windows-only content for that. Oh darn. Anyway, but yeah, that was a fun one to go through. The drink for tonight I wanted to highlight is a Japanese drink that's actually made by Asahi, or at least it's bottled and marketed by them. It's called Calpico, and it is it's a strawberry cream drink. You will find this in many Japanese convenience stores. In fact, if you're visiting over there, a lot of times you might be used to an American convenience store, which has this giant wall of, you're used to having many different energy drinks and sodas and things like that. Believe it or not, your selection is going to be quite limited if you go into something like a 7-Eleven in Japan. This drink is one of the ones that I remember drinking when I was over there, because I just wanted something refreshing, and half the time you end up with something that's fish flavored if you don't speak the language, if you can't read it. This has a very, very simple Japanese here that you might be able to read. It basically says Ichigo and Crema. So you just know that it's Ichigo is Japanese for strawberry, so strawberry cream, that's one that you might be. So if you're wondering what's safe to drink and you're like, oh, I don't want to drink something weird and I can't read the labels, look for that one. It's pretty good. It's very refreshing. It's actually a good morning drink, or if it's really hot out, so I recommend that one. I just saw it on the store shelves. It was cool because I remember seeing it in the convenience stores and being one of the first drinks other than like Coca-Cola. I was like, I know I can count on this and it's not going to be some bizarre flavor. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. I do have some things coming up. I've got a little drama regarding the Otaku box, but I do have one of those coming. I'll talk about the drama about it in the episode where we unbox it. I think you guys might be able to anticipate what that is. But until then, it's been great being back talking anime with you guys, and kanpai.